What exactly is a video game? We use the word video game frequently, but we actually rarely stop to define what that actually is. Is a video game something you play, something you experience, or is it something that responds to you? Let's start with one component, one element of a game. That's mechanics. So that answers the question, what can you actually do? That's the movement, the combat, the dialogue, the systems, all of that comprises the overall mechanics of the game. Without mechanics, there's no agency, you're just observing. So essentially, the mechanics comprise the foundation of the video game. Moving upward from that, the next tier of that is the gameplay. The gameplay is how the mechanics feel in motion, in practice. Two games can share mechanics, but they can feel differently based on the gameplay. This is where pacing, feedback, challenge, and flow of the game lives. And it is because of this why you can play different games and you get a certain sense of differentiation between them because of how that mechanic is being used in practice. The gameplay sets them apart. So now, while it's fun and dandy to not have any objectives or have any direction, I would argue that carefree nature is not necessarily what comprises a video game. You need something to have objectives. You need a winning objective. You need a losing objective. You need criteria for these two different things. And that's how games are representative of structures with boundaries. It wouldn't be a game if there were not present limitations within it. You can't, when you're playing a sports game, obviously the objective is to get a higher score on the board, on the scoreboard, than the opposing team. When you're playing God of War, obviously you want to kill all these monsters and kill and defeat all these enemies so that you can progress the story and that so you don't perish and you don't pass away. When you're playing, let's say it's a exploring type game. When you're playing that, maybe you have to find particular objectives or certain things in the overworld, and those are the winning conditions for that particular game. But you need criteria in order for something to be defined as a video game. There has to be conditions. It can't be anything that is limitless, but something that is comprised of limitations. Arguably, the most important aspect of a video game is the idea and the premise of agency. The player agency specifically. The player has the choice to act upon their own volition within the game and to do whatever they want to do. They aren't just playing the game and responding to predetermined events. They're causing these events because the player is choosing to go down this path. The player is choosing to set this course point marker over here. The player is choosing to not fulfill that objective. The player is choosing not to complete the designated task within a certain amount of time. And then now that refers to what I said earlier about the winning conditions and about what comprises a game is that you need limitations. The player influences all of these things, and that's why I think that is representative of the overall definition of what a video game is. I just mentioned predetermination, some outcome that has already been outlined by the developers for you to eventually arrive to. But even that requires you to engage with the game or there will be no story progression, which is why I think player agency is just probably the most impactful out of all of the elements that I'm going to mention or have mentioned in this video. The next aspect that I think comprises a video game is the narrative, a story. Some games tell explicit stories. Some games tell stories through their NPCs. Some games tell stories in a fragmented manner. Others let stories emerge throughout the gameplay. Story in games is unique because it can be interrupted, it can be delayed, it can be progressed, and a lot of these games allow you to do these things all at once or not at all. Now, me personally, I don't really want to play a game if it's not single player based. There are a lot of titles coming from prominent studios that a lot of people are looking forward to. Let's use From Software as an example. They just concluded wrapping up with Night Rain, and now there seems to be a shift towards these type of games coming from them. These multiplayer type games, potentially live service type games. The Dust Bloods is coming out, supposed to be coming out this year for the Nintendo Switch 2. And I just don't like those type of games because I don't think I can truly become immersed in it. I'm big on immersion, and I think a story is one of the biggest ways that a developer is able to truly bring you into that story and into the world of those characters. Video games are an art form, I think. I think art is another element, another aspect of what makes a game a game. Is it a form of expression? Is it creative? Is it something that other people are willing and likely to engage with? I don't really see that from multiplayer games. This is why I'm just such a big proponent of single player games because they are more narrative based. Now, there are various ways that developers in these game studios create these games and they utilize these overall elements that comprise a video game so that you can enjoy it in a different way than from something else. You could play a game like Tetris. Well, there's no story, there's no narrative, there's really no, well, there's player agency, but there's no story or narrative comprised of that. There is solely mechanics. You're building blocks, you're putting stuff together. It's based on the mechanics. You have a game like The Last of Us, that's mechanics, that's a narrative that brings you into the world. You have games like Minecraft, that's also more so based on mechanics and on systems as opposed to a narrative. So these developers, they are able to use various elements of a video game, or at least the definition that we're creating here, and they are able to give players different experiences based on how they utilize each and every one of these elements, either singularly or holistically. Another element of a video game that I think needs to be addressed is the concept of interactivity, especially as opposed to other forms of mediums. Take movies, for example. Movies move forward without you. Books wait patiently for you as you read and progress through the chapters. Games refuse to exist unless you engage with them. See, if you have a book, it's going to wait for you. It's waiting for you to finish and reading those pages. You have a movie, whether you are looking at it or not, that movie is still playing. That runtime is still going. However, with a video game, let's say you power up the game and you're sitting on the pause menu. Well, the game isn't progressing. It's not moving forward and it's not moving backward. It's just in a form of static limbo, essentially. And there's nothing that you can do unless you engage with it. That's why you have the controller. That's why you have all these various accessories. That's why it's a video game. Failure is another element of what makes a game a game. Failure is essential to a video game. As I alluded to earlier, you need winning conditions, but by virtue of there being winning conditions, there will also be conditions and criteria that will have to have been met for you to be a loser, for you to have failed. You are allowed and expected to be wrong when it comes to a game, but that's how you get better at the game. That's how you will eventually progress it. That's how you will learn these mechanics. Failure teaches rules, reinforces learning, and it shapes mastery. Now, this next element is probably something that could arguably be underrated. I love a story. That's my number one element, but I would say that the feedback, so to speak, is the next most vital point. And that can be comprised of the music, the sound, the animations, the user interface, the vibrations of the controller, the haptic feedback. These things also are an adjunct to the story in terms of accomplishing the goal of immersion, to bring that player into that world. The story can do that, but it surely helps and is surely supplemented by the fact that feedback from the controller and from the sounds and animation and the music and all these other things, that also helps bring the player into the game more. And I think that further defines what a game is. And additionally, that dialogue, so to speak, that feedback that you're receiving from the game, that between you and the system, that creates the immersion. The game is constantly talking to you. The game is constantly communicating with you. It's buzzing, it's making noise. You see gunfire, you see weapons. It's constantly trying to pull you in further and further, but it's upon you to keep engaging with it in order for that communication to happen, which in turn leads to immersion, which in turn defines what a video game is. When you boot up a game, there's a sort of invisible contract that's present. You agree to the game's logic, so to speak. You adhere to what this game's tasks are, and if you don't adhere to it, well, you won't progress and you won't finish the game. That's sort of the invisible contract. You accept its rules for what it is, and you'll eventually beat it, provided that you remain consistent and you learn the controls and you acquire mastery. You break the rules, and the game breaks too. A video game isn't just mechanics. It isn't just story. It's a conversation between the player and the system, and every time we press that start button, we're agreeing to listen and to respond to it. I'm Harlem. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.